If you're a high-achieving woman who's exhausted by stress, stuck in constant conflict, and tired of being overlooked in the exact rooms where you know you were born to lead, then this podcast is for you. So here's your host, Pallavi Jain.
Welcome to Her Boss Brain, where we move from stress to success. I'm Pallavi Jain, your host, and for anyone joining us for the first time, welcome to the space, my friends. I want to share with you all what happened this past weekend. Well, while the world was celebrating Mother's Day, posting beautiful pictures, flowers, brunches, heartfelt captions, and messages about strength and love, I found myself sitting in a room full of women at an event that left a very deep impact on me. From the outside, these women looked like they had it all together, right? They were successful, stylish, confident, well spoken. Some were speakers, some were business owners, leaders in their industries, and some were simply attending and supporting one another. And honestly, if you looked at social media photos from that room, you would probably think, wow, what an inspiring group of empowered women. But as the day unfolded, something shifted. The masks slowly started coming off. The polished conversations started becoming more honest. The smiles became heavier, the energy changed. And what I began to see underneath all that success and external confidence was something much deeper. I saw exhaustion. Phrases like, I just feel tired. I'm done. Not physical tiredness alone. This was emotional exhaustion. The kind where people are tired of carrying everything, tired of holding it all together all the time, tired of constantly trying to prove that they are enough. And as conversations deepened, I heard women talk about health concerns, struggling marriages, workplace stress, bullying, pressure, parenting worries, financial anxiety, and emotional loneliness. And then came the statements that honestly stayed with me long after the event ended. I don't feel like I'm a good mom. I feel like I'm failing. No matter what I achieve, I still don't feel good enough. And what struck me most was this. These were not weak women. These were capable, intelligent, high functioning women, women who, from the outside, many people would admire. Yet internally, so many of them felt inadequate, emotionally drained, and disconnected from themselves. And at one point, I remember sitting there quietly observing all of this. I had tears in my eyes. I was lost. It was a weird feeling. And I was asking myself, what are we doing to ourselves as a society? Why are so many people living this way? Why does success feel so empty for so many people? And why are so many women constantly carrying guilt? Guilt about motherhood, guilt about work, guilt about relationships, about not doing enough, not being enough, not giving enough. And in that moment, even I started feeling emotionally shaken. I started questioning myself too. And I remember thinking, what is the point of all of this? What are we all chasing? Why are we living in a way where people feel like they constantly have to perform just to feel worthy? And then, of course, came the moment where it was now my time for my session. And ironically, the title of my session was The Moment That Defines You. How you take back your power in the moments that matter the most. And I remember I was just sitting there and I was thinking, I don't even know what I'm going to say right now because the emotional energy in the room had literally affected me too. I had a script prepared, I had talking points, I had slides, I had a structure, but suddenly none of it felt important anymore to me. And I felt emotionally clouded, confused, and very heavy. And this is something I think people don't talk about enough, that even those of us who teach emotional resilience, leadership, self awareness are still human beings. We still get impacted by environments, we still absorb emotions, and we still have moments where our own clarity gets shaken. And in that moment, I could feel my own inner dialogue. That spiral started happening. What's the point? Will this even matter? Can one session really help anyone? And am I even saying the right things? And then, as I was thinking all of this and it was making me feel overwhelmed, thankfully, I caught myself and I did something that completely shifted me. I paused, right? I closed my eyes and I just felt my feet under the ground. I used all my five senses to really hear, smell, and just kind of zone myself out of all that overwhelm that I was feeling. So I applied the ATM framework, right, in real time, not as theory, not as a polished coaching tool, but as a human being trying to find clarity in the middle of emotional overwhelm because I think I was feeling so much pain for these women that my own perception got clouded. So I did the first step. I arrived, I paused because when emotion takes over, clarity disappears. And when guilt, stress, overwhelm, fear, comparison, and that emotional heaviness take over the nervous system, we stop thinking consciously. And that is exactly where so many people are living today. Not intentionally, not consciously, just reactively. So I paused and I simply arrived in that moment, right? And not in everyone else's moment or emotions, and not in the pressure of delivering that perfect session. And then came the second step, take responsibility. And I want to be very clear here because this matters deeply. Responsibility is not blame. Too many people hear the word responsibility and immediately think, okay, so now I'm blaming myself for everything. No, responsibility means reclaiming your power. In that moment, I finally realized because I was centered, I anchored myself, I arrived in that moment. Now I realized that I could not control what these women had been through. I could not control societal expectations. I could not control years of emotional conditioning that they may have gone through, that all of us have gone through. And I could not control the pressure they were carrying. But I could control how I chose to show up in that moment. Because I could either stay emotionally consumed by everything I was witnessing, or I could reconnect to what truly mattered to me. And then I asked myself, what truly matters right now? And the answer became very clear. That's where I saw that pivot started happening again. I started finding myself back again in that moment because it was very clear to me that I wanted these women to leave feeling like they had some power back. Not because their life suddenly became easier or every problem disappeared, but because they realized that they were not powerless. That's what I wanted to do. That they did not have to stay trapped in guilt. That they had the ability to consciously choose how they respond to life one moment at a time. And once that clarity came, the third step became obvious to me. Make a conscious choice. So in that moment, I made a choice to stop worrying about delivering the perfect session, what really matters, or assuming that this message would not matter. I dropped all of that. I simply chose to speak from my heart. I chose presence over performance. I chose impact over perfection. And I realized something important. Clarity returns the moment we reconnect with what truly matters. And I think that is what so many women, and frankly, so many human beings today are craving. Not another message or speech telling them to do more, achieve more, balance more, but the permission to reconnect with themselves again. Because that's where the real leadership advantage is. And honestly, guilt is one emotion I felt very strongly in that room. Because the truth is that so much of the guilt women carry today comes from conditional self worth. And many of us have been taught directly or indirectly that their worth comes from how much they do for others, right? A good mother or father sacrifices endlessly, a good employee over delivers, a good partner keeps everyone happy, a good woman holds everything together. And slowly, without realizing it, self worth becomes tied to performance. And the problem is, no matter how much you achieve externally, if your internal relationship with yourself is built on, I'm only worthy when I perform, you will never truly feel enough. And that is why even highly accomplished people still privately feel inadequate. They may share or may not share that because achievement cannot heal an identity which is rooted in insufficiency. And then you add social media on that, right? Everywhere we look, we are being shown curated perfection, perfect parenting, vacation, perfect careers, lives. And we're overstimulated emotionally, mentally, digitally, and socially, and we are constantly comparing ourselves with everyone else, thinking about everyone, remembering everything, anticipating everyone's needs, and holding emotional space for everyone else while silently collapsing internally. And eventually, guilt becomes the background noise of our life. I should be doing more, I should be happier, I should be more grateful. Even we feel guilty about that. And when guilt becomes your internal soundtrack, you stop hearing your own truth. You lose that inner clarity. You stop asking, what actually matters to me? What do I need? What kind of life do I truly want to create? Instead, you live reacting to expectations. And this is exactly why the ATM framework matters so much to me. It's so simple, but it's so powerful because it is not about becoming perfect. It is about learning how to reconnect to yourself in the moments that matter the most, the moments when you are overwhelmed. Can you arrive instead of react? Can you take responsibility for what is actually in your control instead of spiraling into helplessness? Can you make a conscious choice aligned with what truly matters in that moment? Because real transformation does not happen through grand declarations. It happens in small intentional moments. The way you speak to yourself after making a mistake, the boundary you finally choose to set, the way you respond to your child when you're stressed, the conversation you stop avoiding. This is where power lives. And today, especially after witnessing what I witnessed this weekend, I want to remind every woman listening here, and honestly, every human being listening, you do not have to earn your worth through exhaustion. You do not have to keep doing, keep proving your value by sacrificing yourself endlessly. You do not have to be perfect to be meaningful. And maybe being a good mother, being a good partner, a good leader, a good father, or simply a good human being was never about doing everything perfectly. Maybe it is about becoming intentional enough to make conscious choices in the moments that matter most. Maybe it is about learning to lead from within instead of constantly chasing validation from outside. And maybe that is where real peace begins. Not in perfection, but in presence. Not in performance, but in conscious living. And that is how we regain or and activate our boss brain, our ability to be on self-start, which is not led by guilt, not led by fear or pressure, but led by love and presence. And I want to share one final honest truth that's coming to your mind to close this episode is as I sat there that day, listening to these women, watching their exhaustion, their guilt, their loneliness, there was a moment where I genuinely questioned myself. I questioned this work. I questioned whether any of this even matters. Because when you witness how deeply people are struggling beneath the surface, in workplaces, relationships, families, within themselves, it can feel overwhelming. And I remember saying to myself, like, oh my God, can one conversation really change anything? Can one workshop really make a difference? Can we actually shift cultures that are constantly pushing people into burnout, pressure, comparison? And honestly, for a moment, I felt emotionally lost. I felt so small in comparison to the size of the problem. And there was a part of me that wondered in that moment, why am I doing this work if I cannot change this reality? And maybe that was the lesson I needed too. Because maybe the goal is not to change the entire world overnight. Maybe the goal is to help one human being reconnect with themselves in one meaningful moment. And because real change does not happen all at once, it happens one conscious moment at a time, one leader, one conversation, one choice. And that day reminded me why this work matters, not because it makes people perfect, but because it helps people remember that they are not powerless, that even in the middle of pressure, guilt, exhaustion, uncertainty, emotional overwhelm, they still have agency. They still have a choice. They still have the ability to lead from within. So if you're listening to this today, feeling tired, feeling disconnected from yourself, feeling like you're carrying too much, I want you to remember this. You do not have to solve your entire life today. Just return to yourself in one small moment. Arrive, take responsibility for what is in your control, and make one conscious choice aligned with what truly matters. And maybe that small moment becomes the moment that changes everything, right? I'm sending you all so much love and joy. Take care, everyone.
So that's it for today's episode of her Boss Brain podcast. Head on over to Apple Podcasts, iTunes, or wherever you listen and subscribe to the show. One lucky listener every single week that posts a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes will win a chance in a grand prize drawing to win a $25,000 private VIP day with Pallavi herself. Be sure to head on over to her bossbrainpodcast.com and pick up a free copy of Pallavi's gift and join us next time.